Hi friends, welcome to Beautifully Bookish Bethany. In today's video, I'm going to be recommending to you some of my favorite picks for shorter works of fiction. This is going to include novellas, anthologies, and short stories. Last month, I did a video talking about my favorite short form romance fiction, and if you haven't seen that video yet, I will link it up above. In today's video, we're going to be talking about other types of short form fiction that I'm a fan of. I'm going to tell you the majority of this is going to be speculative fiction, mostly science fiction and fantasy, but there are a few other things thrown in. So for those of you who like to read short stories or novellas, hopefully this will give you some new things to check out. So my first big recommendation, if you are a fan of novellas, if you like science fiction and fantasy, is you really need to start following Torcom. Torcom is a science fiction and fantasy publishing imprint that I really love. Many of my favorite short form books and novellas come from them. They're publishing a lot of cool, interesting, experimental stories from a diverse range of authors. So if you are not already following them, I highly recommend it. The other cool thing about Torcom, if you are an ebook reader, is if you sign up for their newsletter, every month they have a free ebook that they offer that you can just download. And so you can get a lot of cool stuff from them that way. Not everything that they publish is a novella. They do publish full-length novels as well, but they do a lot of novellas. So I'm going to give you a bunch of recommendations of things on my bookshelves that I am a big fan of that were published by Torcom. First up, if you like science fiction, you might want to check out the Binti trilogy. These are 3 novellas by Nnedi Okorafor, following a young woman from a tribe in Africa set in the future who goes into space and encounters aliens. And I won't say anything else about this. I've read the first 2 in the series so far, and I really love them. I think Nnedi Okorafor has so much imagination and crams a ton of world building into these short stories. Sadly, I don't yet own any of his books in physical form, but P. Djeli Clark is also published by Torcom, and he has several novellas that he's published through them. A Dead Djinn in Cairo and The Haunting of Tramcar 015 are both novellas that were published by Torcom. They're semi-steampunk, set in an alternate historical version of Egypt with a mystery element to them, and they're really fun. He's got a full-length novel coming out soon. And then a really big release from 2020, Ring Shout, was published through Torcom by P. Djeli Clark, and that is a fantastic novella that's more of a horror fantasy with alternate history elements addressing racism and the history of racism in America. I really loved it. I think it's fantastic. Another sci-fi novella that I really loved, and this was one of my favorite books of last year, is Riot Baby by Tochi Onyebuchi. It's another novella, and it's set in the near future, featuring a brother and sister who have developed these kind of abilities, but this is a book that is really dealing with racism and the criminal justice system in America. It's really intense, really powerful, and I loved it. I think it's fantastic. Of course, another sci-fi favorite from Torcom is The Murderbot Diaries by Martha Wells. I freaking love these. They begin with All Systems Red, and Murderbot is just the best. These are all told from the perspective of Murderbot, who is a super snarky biological AI who's hacked his governor module, and I just love these. They're really fun. If you're intimidated by science fiction, I think these are a really good starting point. They're super character driven, and I just love them a whole lot. So far, there are 4 novellas and 1 full-length novel, and then I think another novella is also coming out relatively soon, so I love these. You're seeing what I'm saying. If you like short form fiction, you need to be you really need to follow Torcom. Another novella series that's a big booktube darling from Torcom is the Wayward Children series by Seanan McGuire. I have so much love for all of these books. They begin with Every Heart a Doorway, and basically are set in a world where portals to other fantastical worlds exist, and children sometimes go through them and sometimes come back and need support coping with the real world. So Every Heart a Doorway introduces you to the world. It has a murder mystery plot engine, and I love it a whole lot. And then we have Down Among the Sticks and Bones, Beneath the Sugar Sky, In an Absent Dream, Come Tumbling Down, and then I haven't bought a copy of the latest one, but Across the Green Grass Fields I also really loved. Really fantastic series, and all of them are novella length. My last recommendation from Tor.com that I've read is American Hippo by Sarah Gailey. This is actually a bind-up of 2 novellas and 2 short stories set in this alternate history United States where there are cowboys who herd hippos, and this is so much fun. It's entertaining, it's rollicking, it's got a great cast of diverse characters. I just had a blast with this and have tried to push it on other people. So this is the bind up, but it includes the novellas River of Teeth and Taste of Marrow, as well as 2 new short stories set in this world for the bind up. So clearly I am a huge fan of Tor.com. I have more of their novellas back here that I have not yet read. I've got arcs of books that they have sent to me. I just think they're really phenomenal. And if you like science fiction and fantasy and you're looking for short form fiction, they are a must to follow. But I do have some other recommendations for you as well. From other publishers than Tor.com, I have one other novella that I want to mention, and then I have a whole stack of short story anthologies that I will recommend to you guys. The final novella is To Be Taught of Fortunate by Becky Chambers. This was one of my absolute favorite books that I read last year. I really loved it. I love Becky Chambers. She writes softer science fiction that is more character driven. Not everybody seems to love this one as much as I did, but I was a huge fan of it. It follows a woman who is part of a crew sent to explore space and go to these different planets. And I just thought this was really beautiful. It's about the ethos of leaving as little of a footprint as possible where you go while doing scientific exploration, and really honoring the other places and not coming with a colonizing mindset. And yeah, I really love this a lot. It made me cry. I think it's wonderful, and it's pretty short. Then I have a bunch of anthologies or short story collections for you guys. First up, from one of my favorite authors, and I think this is a nice way if you want to sort of dip your toes and get a flavor for the many types of things she can write. How Long Till Black Future Month by N.K. Jemisin is a collection of short stories and 1 novella, and I loved this a whole lot because there are so many stories without a unifying theme except for the fact that she wrote them. They may be hit or miss for you in terms of which ones you like and which ones you don't, but I think this is a great one to pace yourself with and maybe read like a story a day type thing as a way to get a good flavor for the different types of things that N.K. Jemisin writes, the types of topics that she's interested in exploring. This is a nice entry point, and I really loved it. There were a few stories in particular that I just thought were fantastic. If you are a fan of horror, I have a couple. Oh, you know what? I actually have another one that I forgot to grab. I should have thought of this, but I have 2 short story collections in the horror genre that I think are really awesome. The first one that I forgot to grab a copy of is Her Body and Other Parties by Carmen Maria Machado. These are dark, feminist, frequently queer horror stories, and I think they're really great. Obviously, and I think this is true of any anthology, usually some stories are going to connect with you better than others, but overall I think this is well worth your time, and I just love Carmen Maria Machado's approach to writing. I also have Who's There by Dimas Rio. This is a book that was sent to me by the author for review, and I just really loved it. I think they're very interesting. It's a collection of horror short stories by an indie author from Indonesia, and all of the stories are drawing on Indonesian folklore and mythology, which is pretty fascinating. So if you're looking for a different take on some horror short stories, I think these are definitely worth your time. Perhaps one of my absolute favorite short story collections, I just loved all of these so much, and one of them made me sob, is Aidi by Roxane Gay. I love Roxane Gay's writing. I just think it's beautiful and so well executed. And this is a little short story collection about Haiti and Haitians in diaspora. So it deals a lot with identity and gender and sexuality and race and how you fit in different places, and it's just fantastic. Roxane Gay is amazing. If you haven't read from her before, this is not a bad place to start. Well worth your time, as I will probably say with a lot of these. I personally really enjoy reading novellas. I know they don't work for everyone, but I like them a lot. I love it when authors are really able to develop characters and worlds in short form. I like longer novels as well, but I think novellas can be really awesome. All the rest of the books I'm going to recommend are YA anthologies. For something that's still a little more on the horror side, you might want to try His Hideous Heart, edited by Dahlia Adler. I really love this a lot. It's 13 different stories by 13 different YA authors retelling stories by Edgar Allan Poe. And so they have really interesting takes on them. There were a couple that I didn't love, but overall I really liked this a lot, enough that I bought myself a finished copy. What's cool about it too is the first half of the book is the retellings and the second half of the book is the original stories by Edgar Allan Poe, which is just kind of great. And I love it also for teenagers as a way of connecting them to classic literature. Definitely would recommend this one. And I haven't read it yet, but I think by the time this goes up, there will be a second anthology, also edited by Dahlia Adler, that's retellings of Shakespeare plays. So I think that's pretty cool if you want to check that out. I know I said I was done with romance, but I do have a pretty cute YA romance anthology if that's your jam. This is Meet Cute, and it's got a bunch of short stories about meet cutes. So the beginnings of relationships amongst teenagers. I thought this was adorable. It's got a lot of really fantastic stories. It's got some diversity in the stories that are being told in terms of race and gender and sexuality. It was just adorable. So if you're looking for some charming little YA romance stories, this is a great anthology to pick up. One that I read near the beginning of my booktube career for reasons that will probably become obvious, but an anthology that I legitimately really enjoyed, Because You Love to Hate Me. And this is 13 stories about villains by 13 YA authors in conversation with booktubers, which I think is really interesting. The booktuber contributions weren't always my favorite part of this. There were a couple that I thought were really good and really interesting, but overall I loved the stories. And so if you like villain backstories, if that's something you enjoy, which I definitely do, this one is for sure worth checking out. And then my last recommendation is another YA short story anthology from a bunch of different authors that I just thought was so good and so well executed. This is Black Enough, Stories of Being Young and Black in America, edited by E.B. Zaboy. It has a phenomenal collection of authors, and all of these are YA stories about different experiences of being Black. It covers so many different things. It covers biracial identity, racism, colorism, being queer and Black, being nerdy and Black. I just think this is a really great collection of stories, and would love to see more people pick it up. So there you go. Many choices for you. If you are a fan of reading short form fiction, short stories, novellas, hopefully that gives you some great places to start. Talk to me in the comments down below. Let me know any of your thoughts or feelings on anything I talked about today. And for your question of the day, recommend to me one of your favorite novellas or anthologies. Tell me what it is, why you love it, and why you would recommend it to others. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up, subscribe if you want to see more, and if you want to support the work of the channel, check out the Patreon linked down below or check out channel memberships. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.